Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, and I'm your host, General Biography. Today, we're going to explore one of the most significant conflicts of the American Civil War, the Battle of Fort Donelson. This battle marked a crucial turning point in the war, as it gave the Union control of the Cumberland River and paved the way for the eventual capture of Nashville, Tennessee. To understand the significance of this battle, we must first examine its origins. The story of Fort Donelson begins in the early days of the Civil War, when the Confederacy was scrambling to defend its territory from the advancing Union Army. In the summer of 1861, Confederate General Leonidas Polk began constructing a series of fortifications along the Cumberland River, including Fort Donelson, which was situated on a bluff overlooking the river in Stewart County, Tennessee. The fort's strategic location allowed it to control access to the river and protect the nearby town of Dover. As the Confederates worked to complete the fort, they faced numerous challenges, including a lack of resources, manpower, and expertise. Despite these obstacles, the fort began to take shape, with a complex system of trenches, bastions, and redans designed to withstand a Union assault. By the winter of 1861 to 1862, Fort Donelson was still under construction, but it was already becoming a formidable stronghold. The Confederates assigned Brigadier General John B. Floyd to command the fort, and he arrived in late January 1862, bringing with him a brigade of troops from Virginia. Floyd's forces were augmented by additional units from Tennessee and Kentucky, including cavalry, infantry, and artillery regiments. The total strength of the Confederate garrison at Fort Donelson was around 17,000 men, although many of these troops were still in training or lacked combat experience. Meanwhile, the Union Army, led by Brigadier General Ulysses S. Grant, had been advancing on Fort Henry, a Confederate stronghold located about 12 miles to the west of Fort Donelson. Grant's forces had already captured the town of Paducah, Kentucky, and were now pushing south into Tennessee. The Union Army was a mix of seasoned veterans and raw recruits, but they were well equipped and well trained, with a strong artillery component. As Grant's troops approached Fort Henry, the Confederates at Fort Donelson prepared for battle. They knew that if Fort Henry fell, Fort Donelson would be the next target, and they were determined to defend it at all costs. The stage was set for a pivotal conflict that would determine the fate of the Western Theater and ultimately contribute to the outcome of the Civil War. The fight for Fort Donelson was a defining moment in the Civil War, and its consequences would be felt for years to come. The Union Army, led by Brigadier General Ulysses S. Grant, had already captured Fort Henry, a Confederate stronghold located about 12 miles to the west of Fort Donelson. With Fort Henry in Union hands, Grant's forces turned their attention to Fort Donelson, which was situated on a bluff overlooking the Cumberland River in Stewart County, Tennessee. The fort's strategic location allowed it to control access to the river and protect the nearby town of Dover. As Grant's troops approached Fort Donelson, they were met with a complex system of trenches, bastions, and redans designed to withstand a Union assault. The Confederate garrison, led by Brigadier General John B. Floyd, was determined to defend the fort at all costs. The Confederates had around 17,000 men stationed at Fort Donelson, although many of these troops were still in training or lacked combat experience. On February 13, 1862, Grant's forces began their approach to the fort with a mix of seasoned veterans and raw recruits. The Union Army was well equipped and well trained with a strong artillery component. As they advanced, they encountered fierce resistance from the Confederate defenders, who were entrenched behind their fortifications. The battle raged on for several days, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. On February 15, Grant's forces launched a massive assault on the fort, but were repelled by the Confederates. However, the Union Army refused to give up, and they continued to pound the Confederate defenses with artillery fire. One of the most significant events of the battle took place on February 16, when a group of Union gunboats, led by Commander Andrew Hull Foote, arrived on the scene. The gunboats provided crucial support to Grant's forces, bombarding the Confederate defenses and helping to weaken their resolve. As the battle wore on, it became clear that the Confederates were in trouble. Their supplies were running low, and their defenses were beginning to crumble. On February 16, General Floyd called a council of war with his commanders, where they decided to attempt a breakout from the fort. However, the plan was poorly executed and the Confederates were ultimately forced to surrender. On February 17, 1862, Grant's forces accepted the surrender of the Confederate garrison at Fort Donelson. The Union Army had won a decisive victory, capturing over 12,000 Confederate soldiers and gaining control of the Cumberland River. The battle marked a turning point in the war, as it gave the Union a crucial foothold in the Western theater and paved the way for the eventual capture of Nashville, Tennessee. The bravery and sacrifice displayed by both sides during the Battle of Fort Donelson are still remembered today. As Grant himself said, the Battle of Fort Donelson was a victory of great importance and one that will have a most beneficial effect upon our cause. The battle was a testament to the strength and determination of the Union Army, and it marked a significant milestone in the ultimate defeat of the Confederacy. The surrender of Fort Donelson on February 17, 1862, marked a significant turning point in the war. The Confederacy had suffered a major blow, losing a crucial stronghold in the Western theater. The Union Army, on the other hand, had gained a vital foothold, paving the way for further advances into Confederate territory. In the aftermath of the battle, the Union Army began to consolidate its gains. Grant's forces occupied Fort Donelson and the nearby town of Dover, and began to establish a new supply line along the Cumberland River. The Confederates, meanwhile, were forced to regroup and reassess their strategy. The loss of Fort Donelson had left them vulnerable to further Union advances, and they knew that they had to act quickly to prevent further defeats. One of the most significant consequences of the Battle of Fort Donelson was the impact it had on the war effort in the Western theater. The Union victory had given them control of the Cumberland River, which provided a vital transportation route into the heart of Confederate territory. This allowed the Union Army to launch further advances into Tennessee and Kentucky, ultimately leading to the capture of key cities such as Nashville and Corinth. The battle also had a significant impact on the soldiers involved. The Confederates who had surrendered at Fort Donelson were taken prisoner and sent to Union prison camps. Many of these soldiers would spend years in captivity, facing harsh conditions and struggling to survive. The Union soldiers, on the other hand, had emerged victorious, but at great cost. They had suffered heavy casualties during the battle, and many were left to grapple with the physical and emotional trauma of war. In the years that followed, the Battle of Fort Donelson would be remembered as a pivotal moment in the Civil War. The bravery and sacrifice displayed by both sides during the battle would be commemorated in songs, stories, and monuments. Today, the site of the battle is preserved as a national park, serving as a reminder of the significance of this conflict and the enduring legacy of the soldiers who fought it. As we reflect on the significance of the Battle of Fort Donelson, it's clear that its impact extended far beyond the battlefield. The battle marked a turning point in the war, paving the way for further Union advances and ultimately contributing to the defeat of the Confederacy. It also had a profound impact on the soldiers involved, leaving a lasting legacy that would be felt for generations to come. In the words of historian Shelby Foote, the Battle of Fort Donelson was a crucial moment in the war, one that marked a shift in the balance of power between the Union and Confederacy. The battle was a testament to the strength and determination of the Union Army, and it would go down in history as one of the most significant conflicts of the Civil War. The bravery, sacrifice, and strategy that defined the battle continue to inspire and educate us today, serving as a powerful reminder of the complexities and challenges of war. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.